Of King Maekar Targaryen's 6 children, arguably the most important is his 4th and youngest son, Prince Aegon, the future King Aegon V. While it took a string of misfortune for Maekar himself to ascend to the Iron Throne, it would take an even more unlikely set of circumstances for the crown to fall to Prince Aegon at his father's eventual death. Prince Daeron had died of a pox caught from a whore, Aegon from drinking wildfire, believing it would turn him into a dragon. Then we have Aemon, who had become a maester long before his father was even heir to King Aerys I. Therefore, the Iron Throne one day would pass to the 4th son of the 4th son, a series of events that no man could have foreseen and no odds would have favoured. In truth, the childhood of Prince Aegon was just as unlikely as him coming to the throne, spending his youth as a squire to a Hedge Knight, something not fitting for a prince of House Targaryen. But being the 4th son of the 4th son is what allowed this unusual path, as Aegon at the time seemed far removed from the line of succession. Many scholars of history point to this unconventional childhood as defining the kind of king Aegon would one day become, the good and the bad. Therefore, given its impact on events to come, now seems like a good time for us to document the early life of Prince Aegon, son of King Maekar, known forever in the pages of the histories as Aegon the Unlikely. Prince Aegon was born the 4th son and 5th child of the then Prince Maekar Targaryen and his wife, Lady Diana Dane, in the year 200 AC. Like most princes of House Targaryen, Aegon served at court in King's Landing for 2 years as a page, sometimes attending to the small council. In keeping with the traditions of House Targaryen, Aegon was given a dragon's egg in his cradle as a babe, which was coloured with green and white swirls. But as is the case with most of the dragon eggs after the Dance of the Dragons, it never hatched. However, despite this recent history, that did not stop Aegon and his elder brother Aemon hoping that one day their eggs would hatch so they could become dragon riders together. Aegon seemed closer with Aemon than any of his other siblings. The brothers would often recreate famous battles with small painted soldiers on the maester's table at Summerhall, specifically the Battle of the Red Grass Field. While close with Aemon and indifferent towards Daeron, Aegon loathed Aerion, who he felt was cruel and sadistic. It has been said that it was Aerion who threw Aegon's pet cat down a well, and once he visited Aegon in his bedchamber during the dead of night, put a knife to Aegon's privates, and joked about removing them so he would become a girl whom Aerion could marry. At some point, Aegon's sister Rhae slipped a love potion into his drink so that he would marry her and not their sister Daela, to whom Aegon could potentially have been betrothed to at the time. The truth of the matter was that Aegon did not wish to marry at all. Instead, he dreamed of becoming a knight of the Kingsguard, who was sworn not to wed. Aegon's life would fundamentally change in the year 209 AC at the now famous tourney at Ashford Meadow. At his father's insistence, Aegon was supposed to squire for his elder brother, Daeron, but Daeron had no interest in jousting or fighting and instead drank himself into a stupor at an inn, leaving Aegon unattended. Before setting out for Ashford, Daeron had shaved Aegon's head to prevent the boy's distinctive Targaryen hair from being recognised by men sent by their father, an issue that Daeron himself need not worry about. When the Hedge Knight, Ser Duncan The Tall, came across the inn Daeron was drinking in, near Ashford, he assumed Aegon was a stable boy, calling himself Egg. Aegon was impressed by the humble Hedge Knight and followed him in secret after Duncan had declined his request to squire for him. When Ser Duncan later found Aegon at his camp, he agreed to let Egg serve as his squire during the tourney. When watching the opening lists of the tourney, Aegon was said to have been horrified at his brother Aerion's shameful actions by targeting his opponent's horse rather than the rider. When Duncan got into a fight with Aerion for attacking some puppeteers, Aegon intervened to save Dunk, but in the process revealing his true identity to the shock and horror of the Hedge Knight. Ser Duncan was arrested and sentenced to fight in a trial of 7. Aegon managed to convince Sir Lionel Baratheon to fight on behalf of Duncan. Aegon's uncle, Prince Baelor Breakspear, the heir to the Iron Throne, also fought alongside Duncan during the trial. But sadly, as Ashford has become well known for, Baelor died of his wounds inflicted by Prince Maekar, Baelor's brother and Aegon's father, who had fought on behalf of Aerion and House Targaryen in the trial of 7. Maekar, who at this time was styled as the Prince of Summerhall, wished Aegon to be trained as a knight, but Aegon would only agree if Duncan were the knight who trained him. When Maekar subsequently offered Duncan a place at the garrison of Summerhall, Duncan declined and agreed to take Aegon only if he accompanied him as his squire. Aegon would live humbly, but Duncan thought it would make Aegon a better man than his brothers, Aerion and Daeron. Thus, Aegon served as a squire to Ser Duncan The Tall under his nickname Egg. Such a decision by Maekar to allow his son not only to squire for such a low-born knight, but a hedge knight most of all, is perhaps one of the most unexpected and unprecedented moments in the history of House Targaryen. Little did Maekar know at the time, allowing his fourth son to travel down such a humble path would leave a huge impact during the final era of Targaryen Westeros. Much of Aegon's time as a squire is as of yet untold, but we do know some of the details of these formative years for the prince. Aegon kept his identity a secret from public, while at the same time he kept hidden in his boot a signet ring from his father should he ever end up in trouble. After Ashford Meadow, Prince Aegon and Ser Duncan spent some time in Dorne, escorting merchants from the prince's pass to Vaith. The pair also travelled aboard a poleboat on the Greenblood towards Plankytown. After leaving Dorne, Duncan and Aegon then sailed on the White Lady to Oldtown, where Aegon received a mule named Maester, a gift from his brother, the now Maester Aemon. A little less than 2 years after Ashford Meadow, Aegon and Duncan entered the service of Sir Eustace Osgrey of Standfast during his conflict with Roanne Webber, Lady of Coldmoat, over the Chequy Water. At Coldmoat, Egg verified for the illiterate Ser Duncan that the royal parchment from King Daeron II had granted the stream to Lord Wyman Webber. When Roanne demanded that Eustace turn over Sir Bennis of the Brown Shield, Duncan showed Aegon's signet ring to her in an unsuccessful attempt to avert hostilities. After Aegon slew Sir Lucas Ichfield in a trial by battle, Aegon pulled Duncan from the stream and then protected the wounded Hedge Knight during his recovery. Eustace and Roanne chose to wed to end their conflict, and Aegon attended Eustace during the wedding feast. Roanne gifted Aegon a sorrel palfrey, which he named Rain. After spending some time at Stony Sept in the Riverlands in the year 212 AC, Aegon and Ser Duncan the Tall attended the now infamous wedding tourney at White Walls. While there, Aegon struck the squire of Sir Malor after an insinuation that Prince Maekar Targaryen was a kinslayer who might one day intentionally kill King Aerys I to claim the throne for himself. Aegon attended to Duncan, who at the time was under the guise of the Gallows Knight, during his joust with Sir Uther Underleaf. Egg was distraught after Duncan's defeat, as the Hedge Knight would now have to forfeit to Uther his sword, armour and horse. The White Walls wedding tourney was actually a cover for the Second Blackfyre Rebellion, with Daemon II Blackfyre competing in the tourney under the guise of John the Fiddler. Aegon revealed his signet ring to Maester Lothar, who turned the boy over to Lord Ambrose Butterwell and Lord Frey. After Aegon claimed that his father was marching on White Walls with an army, Ambrose fled to the castle Sept with Aegon, while Lord Frey returned to the twins. Duncan slew Sir Tomard Heddle when the knight tried to take the prince hostage. Duncan then told Aegon to escape White Walls if he could. The next morning, the Blackfyre conspirators were surrounded when Lord Brendan Rivers, Bloodraven, arrived with the royal host with Aegon in his company. Daemon II Blackfyre would be taken as a captive. Aegon convinced Bloodraven to lend gold to Duncan so he could ransom his possessions back from Uther Underleaf. After this, we know that Ser Duncan and Prince Aegon spent some time in the north at Winterfell. However, we currently have no record of their time there or any of their adventures after that. In the year 219 AC, we know that Aegon fought in the Third Blackfyre Rebellion, but much of his involvement during the conflict has not been documented as of yet. 1 year later, Aegon went on to marry Lady Betha Blackwood in 220 AC. Their union was said to be a rare love match, which saw no opposition at the time, as Aegon was far down the line of succession for the Iron Throne. They eventually had 5 children together. Aegon named his firstborn son, Duncan, to honour his friend and mentor, Ser Duncan the Tall. The following year, in 221 AC, Aegon's uncle, King Aerys I, died with no issue and was followed on the Iron Throne by his last living brother, Aegon's father, Prince Maekar Targaryen. Aegon and his brothers were summoned to court by King Maekar. While in 221 AC, it would still take an unlikely series of events for the crown to fall to Prince Aegon. Over the 12 years of his father's reign, his elder brothers either died or refused the throne. Thus, once again in the year 233 AC, the Seven Kingdoms of Westeros would be plunged into chaos, with the peak uprising and the unexpected death of Maekar at a time with no clear succession plan in place.